Welcome to He Said, She Said, and relationshiping in every aspect of your life. I'm Michelle Hoffman, and my co-master coach, Sean Coe. I like how you lined all that up for us, Sean. So I have decided to represent with a question that has been posed several times because I thought it was worthy to being discussed, with the he said side being represented. And this question that I usually get questions in waves. And this one is when, it doesn't necessarily need to be binary, male versus female, but a masculine energy often would like to enter a relationship with the physical side first, and a female energy, so a feminine, or no, rather a feminine energy, because it's not necessarily gender related, but a more feminine energy wants to make an emotional connection first. And so I was posing to the he said side of the group here, what's a way to find a really welcoming, safe, devouring, engulfing sanctuary to create a middle ground between, and actually, I think there are 4 ways to enter in a relationship. Logically, through your brain; emotionally, through your heart; using your intuition with your gut; and then physically. And I think they're all so important. But with that, I wanted to make sure that we had this to share. So when there's a feminine energy that wants to connect in a different way, when the masculine energy is looking for connection physically, what's the he said recommendation on this?
It's very simple. Tequila.
Right, but that takes all of the boundaries off.
Right. I'm just kidding.
And there could be
Alan,
regret.
right, exactly. Alan, I'll defer to you, and then I'll jump in. Go ahead, Alan.
Well, so I think this is essentially how our courtship has evolved between the genders thus far. I think you generally see the masculine energy pushing for physicality sooner than the feminine energy. And, that we actually have books on the subject. It wasn't Miss Manners who wrote a book on courtship, but there was another one that was like the dating guru back in the 50s or something, which was terrifying and interesting read. But essentially, there were steps as far as, okay, here's a good timeline for holding hands, that first kiss, and things of that nature. And it was a mixture of how fast do you get physical and what's the level of intimacy. Certain things, when I learned them, kind of blew my mind. I did not realize that touching somebody on the hand is less intimate than touching their hair. Mm-hmm. I think that might be news to some people. But also I kind of find it interesting because another shocking thing that I discovered in my journeys so far in the solar rotations around this in the solar system has been that even and I like the way you phrased the question, because you postulated it as like male energy and female energy. And it's very interesting that there are some very forward women out there, especially as they get older and they hit the menopause area. And it's very interesting. I've ran into several that are, the best way to put it is on the prowl. And they're like, guys are such chickens. Oh. And I was like, what? And and I've had many of them who fit this category tell me this. They say guys they always come on strong, like, oh baby, let's do it, or right now I'm going to come right over. And she says they never do. They just flat out chicken out. So I grew up in Las Vegas, and there is legalized prostitution at the county line, not in Clark County, but just on the other side. So I grew up knowing people who were bona fide prostitutes. And they said the same thing. There's a lot of guys that head down to the brothel there, and they have a bar at just about every one, because guys have to sit there and work up their courage.
Yeah.
So that's not uncommon at all. Not all guys, but again, so the notion of that energy, that there are these pulls and that it goes differently, you know, for the individual, it's important to recognize.
And let's add the caveman need to continue to populate the planet, because there's also the masculine energy rather than just the male, who will come to copulate just to, like the hunter, once they have their prey
Conquest.
and they've made the conquest, then they don't need that anymore. So that may be in part why a feminine energy will be like, no, we need to make a real connection so this relationship is stabilized and rooted in something that's actually going to survive, something as impactful as a major, a major physical event.
Well,
So
we hope it's major and not minor. We hope it's that impactful.
we want to make sure that part I figured was a
Exactly.
given, but I know we want to make sure that it is. If not, we need to start an additional meetup of how to make sure that connection is impactful. All right, do you want to speak to this one, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of directions to go with this question, right? Like, so the healthiest version of my brain says the greatest thing we can do is create a safe space to talk about it, so that we can explore what versions of connection represent to both parties, so that then, at least if we're on the same page with the conversation, we can have a safe space to be able to talk about it, then capitulate. And like, I think that's the healthiest, most longer term version. Now, that can break down into less healthier versions, where I have experienced certain people talk about it as a business relationship. Like, this is what I'm going to give to get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the woman will give sex to get connection, and or the female, feminine version, and the male, the masculine version, will give connection to get sex. You know, and so I think that there's a self-understanding of what we're seeking. And then there is the healthier version of how do we work as a team to make it a safe space for both needs to get met. Because if we can't do that, it becomes I don't want to say adversarial, but a zero-sum game where we can't both win. And ideally, we want it to be a mutual beneficial process whenever the physical connection happens, and whether that's soon or faster or takes a long time. You know, I'm not going to do the Steve Harvey 90-day rule, but I think it has to be the right timing for the relationship or the connection, which we can't actually explore unless there's a safe space for communication.
Right. Very good. Crystal, I realize you're just jumping in, but you are welcome to comment on this if you would like.
I mean, I think I don't know that I have that much to add, honestly. I mean,
Okay.
I think every person is different in the way they're going to approach it. And, you know, sometimes morals and values come into play, you know, more than your feminine or masculine side. And everyone's different.
That's great.
So I just, yeah.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. And that's very true, because in defining what sex means to someone, to go right into that, it could mean that's something that's shared only in a marriage. And if the marriage is then dissolved, where does that leave these two people? Do they need to wait until the next marriage? In some cases, religion is the determining factor as to whether somebody engages in this type of intimacy. And then that could range to the far other end of the scale, where it's just a way to connect with someone, and that isn't enough. So yeah, it's a very interesting topic. Thank you all for sharing it. I came up with An interesting question that if having a relationship with you were like riding a ride at Disneyland, what ride would you be? Leave it to me, off the cuff. And then of course, you were
Space
waiting
Mountain.
all night for this.
I'm gonna say it would be the oh, what's his name? Tom Sawyer's Island.
Very good. Good. That totally ranked up high. Good one.
See, I was tempted to go with Peter Pan.
Yeah, also.
Yeah. Do you know why? There is a famous couple that ever since the Peter Pan ride has existed, they have been the last two on it every day.
Oh my God, this is a true thing.
This is a true thing. And
Cute.
it's kind of known, and Disney has made several statements asking people to please let them have their anonymity because we don't know what their last name is. But it is known through people who have just had conversations with them that they always buy their season tickets, and every day they must live nearby. They come right before the park is closing and they ride Peter Pan together.
That's really sweet.
That's commitment.
Yep. And I'm like, okay, see that's a great story right there. Who doesn't want to be the Peter Pan ride? But aside from that, Peter Pan may not be the best representation of a good.
It's good. You get to kind of fly. There's a story. There's the little bit of fear and intrigue, but you kind of know, there's a crocodile. But it's good. That's a good one. Sean, I can see.
Well, I can't choose between E.T. and Indiana Jones.
Wait, the ET ride
Yeah.
at Disney?
Yeah.
Well,
No, there was
yeah,
one.
like because it's
That's
Oh, and
universal.
there might not be, but like maybe I'm thinking, different thing. But
That's the best. I love that. The ET ride at Disneyland, of course. That's the
it's magical and it's an adventure and
Because it's a universe.
out of this world experience. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Semantics, details. Yes.
Right.
I believe being in a relationship with Sean may very well be like the ET ride at Disneyland.
Right.
It's its own unique magical thing.
Yeah, and
Right.
we're gonna have copyright law on that one.
And it's not for the faint of heart, for sure. Because I am not always easy to be in a relationship.
I love that the internet went out when that was said.
Yeah, but we got the whole thing. It just went real slow.
Something's
Okay.
happening.
I can repeat it again. Yeah.
No, we understood.
You're like, and we're not surprised. We've been hanging out with you. We are not surprised.
To your partner. Oh my God.
Something I think is interesting, though, again, I'm kind of just bouncing around that masculine feminine energy idea that you were talking about. And I often think about the so attraction, right? The neurological attraction is dopamine, epinephrine, and serotonin. And the rule of 3 years is because you get used to those chemicals in your brain at that level at the 3-year mark. That's why a lot of people go 3 years in a relationship and they break up. I've always said this to all my children. You do not get married until after your 3rd year, because you honestly don't know what it's like yet until that 3rd year is over. And then when you're used to those chemicals and everything kind of mellows, that's what the rest of your life is going to be like. And it's interesting that we have sort of a biological mechanism. I mean, you think 3 years is kind of a long time, right? I mean, the idea is you're magical for 3 years before you're normal. And in that 3 years, you have the opportunity to build a history, to build, to get to know each other, to get all of those things in motion before you're stuck with the mundanity of life.
Well, there's a perception on it. I didn't see it that way at all. Because, I mean, first of all, I never ever felt stuck. Um, and there was no mundane. I mean, okay, so one of the things about, I don't know which ride I would be necessarily. Probably,
Oh,
uh,
that's not fair. You have to give a ride.
I like the Jungle Cruise, somewhere between the Jungle Cruise and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Nice.
The Jungle Cruise is great because there's adventure, there's a little bit of intrigue, you can see the backside of water, there's a little bit of danger, you get to be out on the boat. It's, I believe, the only ride where the characters, the cast, is invited to show personality. You're in it as a team. I mean, there's all kinds of, there's wildlife, there's nature, there's animals, there's changing environments. And that's actually where I was going with it, because the changing of environments, when you do that together, it's growing together. And
Mm.
that's part of the excitement of same thing in a new, with one new facet to it, makes everything different. So keeping it fresh in that way. We have we have a friend who was saying, "Oh yeah, let's go meet. We're going to go on an adventure this weekend, and a friend of a friend is going to be our tour guide." And I'm like, "Well, if what kind of tour guide? What Disneyland ride would he be?" And we decided that is it Autopia or Utopia? I don't remember which, but
Autotopia.
Autopia, because it's like, oh my God, this one's good because you get to do something that you're not allowed to do until you're a certain age. And that, like, come on, that's the first time you get to drive a car. It's exciting. It's riveting. And then even when you know how to drive a car, it's kind of fun. It's like, but very stable, willing to wait in line for that ride because you know what to expect. And it's like the casual dating area where you have something to look forward to because you can anticipate something that's good. So I think that's like a staple, Autopia. If Crystal, if being in a relationship with you were a Disneyland ride, what ride would you be?
Pretty sure Space Mountain.
Oh, exciting. Can't always tell
Yes,
where you're going.
that's right. Sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's light, but you know
Dark.
you're going real fast and there's a lot of bumps and it's a roller coaster. It's great.
Let's also not forget about the amazing line beforehand, because I personally think that Space Mountain has one of the best lines. So even before you get to the ride.
Right, because there's a lot.
That's true.
Now, I got to say that's not true as much now that the Indiana Jones ride exists, because the opening of that line is awesome. And it's never won an award like the It's a Small World, but
The first line, fill us in.
the first line? Oh, no, the Indiana Jones line.
Oh, just the line itself.
Yeah, the line to get there
Those
has
getting
things like
prescription.
hidden messages and all the different writings, and a rope you can pull on to hear archaeologists scream at you, please don't do that, 2 or 3 times before all
Oh my
the weird
God,
stuff gets
okay,
knocked
it
over.
all came back to me now. It's
Yeah.
like not remembering it.
But for years and years and years, the best line was Space Mountain.
Right. So the Star Tours, is that what it is good now with all of the characters.
Yeah, that's another good one.
And Soarin's great too. I think it's just at Disney World.
Yes, in California
That's
Adventure.
an awesome ride.
That is an awesome ride. Actually, somebody just today said that if being in a relationship with them was like a ride, that would be it. Yeah, funny. Well, thank you all for entertaining my inquiries tonight. Crystal, let us ask you this question. Is there a question that you've been looking for the answer to, like in the quiet of the night? This could go deep, personal, anywhere. You've got some master coaches in front of you who are ready to be of support.
Michelle and Sean are master coaches.
Thank you.
Wow.
You caught her off guard.
Yeah, you did. Can I think about it? I mean, one of the things that intrigued me about the session was how to how to handle the narcissist in your life.
I had a feeling that's what was going to come up from you.
Oh yeah. Um,
I don't know why.
so yeah, I had one and I don't anymore. And just want to understand kind of how to navigate that.
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, because my thought is that you handled it perfectly. That
Well, it took me
But-
28 years, but I
there's
did
also the
finally
aspect
handle
that
it.
the narcissist might be your child. The narcissist might be a relative that you have to deal with. It might be a parent. It doesn't necessarily have to be a significant other, or it might be the significant other of a very close friend or relative. So, I mean, they're among us. We have to deal with them. It's not like we just can't.
Yeah.
They are disguised in very attractive packages because we are seeking fulfillment and we are looking for a place to find where we fit. And narcissists naturally know how to be that sparkly object and make you feel quite fulfilled until they don't.
They actually remind me of bees, though. So, like, you look at the way that a hive is made, right? It's genius. The design is unreal. It would be very hard for any of us to come up with a design for a beehive as well as the bees make it. However, they can only make it one way. They can't adjust for their environment. They can't do they just know one thing. And narcissists are often very much like that. And as soon as you learn how to spot them, like, they might as well be carrying around signs that says, "Hi, I'm Bob and I'm a narcissist."
I love a good
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. I love, but then, everybody, there's a lid to every pot. Is that what somebody told me recently? You get the metaphor. I love a good analog. And if we're going to use bees, I mean, is it bees or how to create a hive? Because what I learned about bees from someone the other night was that they are magnetic, and that when they land so I'm totally speaking out of turn, just from something that somebody said. When they land, the pollen leaps onto their legs. It's magnetically attracted to their legs.
I thought that was static.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm repeating
Does
something I heard.
pollen have a ferrous charge?
It was be positive, she said.
Oh, he's Googling it.
Be positive. Okay.
My
Sorry.
life is so not boring. Welcome to my ridiculous world. Okay, so Alan's going to Google. Sean's got really good insight into this because I love, and I'm going to invite you to, he said, on the line of questioning on how to address a narcissistic conversation.
Well, the conversation is actually the easiest piece of it, right? Like, and so there's actually one very simple truth and one very simple strategy that you need to use every time you're talking to a narcissist. And that is, pick one objective or one point for every conversation you're going to have with them. And then anchor back to that everything they say. Because their job is going to be to confuse you, to make you feel crazy, to get you off topic, to throw you off so that they can feel in control. And your job with everything they say is just to bring it back to the one point you've decided this conversation is about. And that is all you do the whole conversation until they blow it up and walk away. It's the only way you can actually create a semblance of control with a narcissist. Now, there are more complex strategies where now the great thing about a narcissist is they don't know how to play chess. They only know how to play checkers. And checkers is a great game, but it is, you make the move right in front of you. So if you actually understand the brain and know how to play chess, you can actually play chess when the narcissist is trying to play checkers, and you can actually win. So when we understand the brain, that it's always about control and protecting their ego and being in the power position, then
There it goes again.
we can actually navigate it by strategies. Internet is off today, so am I back?
You're actually, we're hearing
Or
your
not?
words just when we listen more closely. We're not missing any of your words, just some of them take a moment. We have to listen closely. I have patience.
I
for
just
that.
put it on slow motion.
Makes people pay attention.
That's right.
Right? Yeah, it's just a speaking strategy. So
So, so Crystal, did you get that? Because you are
I
someone
did.
who has connected with someone in this way. So what could then happen is there could be fears of repeating this cycle. And you want to make sure
Yes.
that you've got support so that you don't fall into this trap again, because it's easy enough to do. And
Well, I'm hypersensitive to it now. And it's like every single thing I see, like if someone does anything, like I remember,
Mhm,
you know, how that felt. It's like, all right, red light, bye.
right.
Drop you like a
well,
hot
and
cake.
that's
And
the
that's
other
bad,
danger of it
but
too.
it's a trigger.
Right.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, because it's going to create a fear, it's going to create a trigger. And what we want is to support you in such a way that you feel like you can walk into any situation and be empowered and know you've got this. And know, so that's the difference between chess and checkers, because you can walk into any relationship with anyone, even if this person is someone you're working with, a client, a prospect, somebody who you is the contractor at your house, someone who's selling you furniture, whatever it is, that you can walk into this relationship with confidence that you know how to address this. And in fact, you might almost welcome smaller interactions so that you can practice, one, not getting shut down and not being bedazzled and confused and misdirected, but that you can then, you've got a very clear mission and vision, and you've thought ahead of what you want to have happen, so that when the situation comes up, you are not derailed in any way. In fact, the more you run into that, the stronger that you are, that you know how to navigate that. And then you're able to navigate that with generous arms.
Mm-hmm. That makes a
So,
lot of sense.
right. So yes, you escaped that situation. Now you're oversensitive and you're like, I feel this way again. Get out, run. And now we want to take you a step further so that you can actually be confident in life and competent, that you can advocate for yourself appropriately, welcome any and everyone in, and establish boundaries that are appropriate for you.
Well,
That
and
makes a lot
also
of sense.
coming from a totally different perspective, but saying the same thing, it takes 6 points in real space to locate anything, right? You've got 4 in a square, 1 above, 1 below. 6 points, you can locate any actual point. Biology says in order to identify something, we only need 2 or 3 senses. So if I look at something and I hear a wolf, or if I am in the forest and I hear a wolf, I think to myself, that sounded like a wolf. If I see it rummaging through the foliage, then I say, that looks like a wolf. I've got 2 senses telling me that thing is a wolf. Now it might be just a normal dog and not a wolf, but I have enough of my senses telling me that thing is a wolf that I can begin to take action in order to preserve myself. And that's worked pretty well for the species so far. And I think that right now what's happening is you encountered a wolf. And anytime you see anything wolf-like, that looks like a wolf paw print on the ground, that looks like wolf scat, that kind of smells vaguely wolf-like, that is about the right height for a wolf, you immediately think wolf. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily wrong, but it's too narrow to actually identify if it's a wolf or if it's just a doggy. So you have to learn to bring other senses into it for a minute and then say, all right, what am I dealing with? Have I sniffed something out here? And of course, you're human. We all are. And it takes time to teach our hearts to listen to our brains, because once burned, we just tend to ignore or get away from everything that's hot for a little while.
Oh yeah, Jeeps trigger me.
Fair enough.
I mean, like,
Those
okay, I can never date
those
anyone who drives a Jeep
narcissist
ever. That's wrong. I
those
know that's wrong, and it's completely irrational.
right.
You know, sometimes I do wonder about the big data, right? I mean, Yang had it right when he said that the new currency is big data. We get more money from big data than we do from oil, right? And why is big
Yeah.
data so valuable? Because it can actually find out things about us that we would never know from data we don't even look at. And I'm often just amazed, like, Jeeps, huh? Maybe you found one of those big data things that we didn't know about.
It's an insight.
doubt
It's
it.
a predictor.
I doubt it, but
I don't know. I'm teasing. I don't know.
Yeah. Just so that Jeep is aware, I hold no qualms against anybody who owns
We
a
have all
Jeep.
kinds of copyright infringement on this one.
Yeah.
I've actually
Okay,
always
I'm
been a
gonna-
fan of Jeeps. I love Jeeps.
I mean, I think
I
Jeeps
thought
are
Crystal
cool.
was saying that everybody who drives a Jeep is a narcissist. That's what I thought she was saying.
That's exactly what I was saying.
She's
but
saying it's a red flag for her, yeah.
it's a red flag for me.
And not just
Yeah.
one sticking out the back on a board or something. It's
Yeah, no, It's like, nah. Mm-mm.
Okay, so that's where the big data comes in, because demographically, people who are attracted to that type of vehicle may be looking for their vanity to be approved of.
maybe they want to be seen as someone who's more capable. They can flip themselves over if their car rolls or something.
And you do
They
realize,
can go anywhere in the snow, anywhere.
right?
Makes them powerful. They have
Right.
control over the weather.
See, it's entirely possible that, you know, you are 0.002% more likely to be a narcissist if you own a Jeep. That you know,
But you
that's
do
possible.
realize that being a narcissist is as a result of fear, right?
And insecurity.
And insecurity. And so part of, I mean,
Oh, is that what we're going on?
wait, for Jeeps or for narcissists?
For narcissists. I always thought narcissists were just kind of like psychopaths. They just were.
Do we have scientific support on this, Master?
No, that's why I said I just thought.
Well, I think that we have to differentiate between like the trauma causation of the disorder versus the behavior caused by the disorder. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
The difficulty is
behavior
the
can be
same.
psychopathic, but the
Mhm.
causation would be an emotional injury that removed safety from the development process.
That is really interesting because thinking about it that way, one can become narcissistic, but I'm not sure if one can become psychopathic. I think one has to be born a psychopath.
It's the nature versus nurture.
I think so,
I don't have the science on that.
but I do know that you know, a lot of psychopaths are narcissists, or they act very narcissistic because it's self-serving. And the other thing to remember is not all psychopaths are bad.
Okay, let's bring this to be supported for Crystal.
I'm like, I've never really heard the one that not all psychopaths are bad.
Well, if you're judging them from a moralistic standpoint, a lot of them, you know, there are psychopaths that are police officers, there are psychopaths that are CEOs, there are psychopaths that are very good at their jobs and they're beneficial to society. There are leaders of charities who are psychopaths. There are doctors who are psychopaths.
They just
They-
don't necessarily act on it and like chop up a whole room.
A psychopath is not necessarily somebody who's psychotic. They just don't have
Or a serial killer just by
Mhm.
nature. Yeah.
right. They just don't have the same concerns about other people that we do.
Okay, I'm going to pull it back to be supportive for Crystal. If that's all right, please. Anecdotally and philosophically, there's so much ground to cover on that. And we want to make sure that what we're sharing is supported scientifically. So for the sake of this
Nope,
conversation,
I smelled a red herring. I had to go after it. Sorry.
I know. That's fine. And I'm going to say, reel it all in. So, Crystal, you are in a situation now where you can sit out on your porch, you can have a glass of wine, you can enjoy
Yes.
the sun. It looks like you are taking good care of yourself. And that's feeling like to me, it feels like you're in a very relaxed environment now. Is that true?
Absolutely. I am now. I have everything that I need and I am free. And now it's just about rebuilding me.
Right. So, right. Bravo. Well done. We know that unraveling that was not an easy task.
Yeah.
It probably cost you physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, whatever else I missed on that one. So, well done. Now, my question is, do you have a plan in place? You know the roles that you've held before in your life. You know who you are now. And do you know who you would like to step into becoming?
Yeah, I think I'm still figuring that out because what I ended up doing was having two different versions of myself, the version of myself at work and the version of myself at home,
Mhm.
who were polar opposites of one another. And the one at home was in survival mode.
Right.
So now it's about putting those two people back together and figuring out, okay, who really are you and who do you want to be? And so I'm at the beginning of that journey.
Right. So, Sean and I are supportive right at that point. Do you know the steps to take so that you have the tools to rebuild this? So as I was saying earlier, I'll just use a simple example so that your mind, your emotion, your instinct, and I missed one, heart, gut, mind, body are all in alignment so that you can be authentic to who you truly are. So those two characters who you ultimately, it sounded like you curated one as a self-defense mechanism, and yep, bravo, you did it and survived. So how do you move through that trauma and ensure that you're not letting this grief hold you back in any way? And more than that, that you can honor whatever that trauma lesson brought to you in your life so that the trauma doesn't have a hold on you and it will actually help you move forward. So what kind of tools are you putting in place so that you know that you can live your authentic life your way to the fullest?
So I am working with a life coach.
Great.
And I'm working with a therapist that is more skilled at dealing with narcissistic abuse, the
Mhm.
aftermath, essentially, because my life coach is helping me look forward, right? The
Right.
past is depression. The present is like where we need to be. The future's anxiety. Yeah, that's what
Wait,
that's what I'm living right now. The
future.
future is anxiety. If we're worrying about the future, it just causes anxiety.
Okay, got
If
you.
we're stuck in the past, it's depression. And we need to live right now in the present.
Right. Great.
And let's flow through it. And so that's what I'm focused on doing. And she's helping me but she's helping me learn how to have self-love.
Beautiful.
because I haven't done that.
Well,
And
you couldn't afford it.
self-care is a big component of that, and just being comfortable with myself and not needing external validation, getting my validation from inside.
Very good.
So those are some of the things that we're working on, that a work-life balance, and just really focusing on making me the best me that I can be, whoever that is.
Right. You get to decide who that is, by the way.
Right. And so I'm making lists of, okay, what are my assets? You know, what is it within my span of control or not?
Good.
Those types of exercises that I'm going through to just try to better understand who I am, and not have to feel like I'm not to have to feel guilty if I'm not everything to everyone anymore,
Right.
and being able to set boundaries.
Very good. Very good. I'm trying to think of any, because what you've said is all magnificent.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
is.
the right stuff to do. So bravo, you found some good mentorship, sounds like. So I pulled up some of the topics that I address when I'm working with people, just to see, and you touched on a lot of them. But figuring out what your relationship challenges are and your dream come true, so that you can have a very clear focus. Like, I literally compare it to walking a tightrope. When you know exactly who you are and where you're going, you don't get derailed and fall off the tightrope, because whatever this sparkly object over here is, it's just not relevant.
Right.
I feel like likening it to when you're a kid and you used to watch the kid shows, and then you move and you get a little bit older and you still kind of want to watch them, but you feel like you're too grown up for it. And then at some point they don't really serve you anymore because you've already got that. So you've demonstrated that you've gone through this developmental phase, and you're in a new phase and you're ready to step into who you're becoming. Now it's a matter of Michelangelo's statue, and his comment, of course, is that it's just a big piece of marble, and he just cleared away what wasn't necessary to create the masterpiece of you, Crystal.
Right.
So have you done exercises where you're very clear on what values you have in place, like your core values? That might be a stable.
No, I haven't done that yet.
And have you looked at all different aspects of your life so that you know the areas that you've got this going on, whether it's you've got emotional supports in place, subject matter experts, people who leverage their position for your success, and I'm missing one, accountability partners. Have you done that kind of advisory network?
No.
You talked about anxiety. Have you talked about, so I'm basically giving you some of the confidence index topics so that you know what to address if you haven't already addressed them. I call this one life in reverse, where you know what the end goal is and you make sure that your life is fulfilled in reverse, backwards. By, for example, if you were able to have, we can't do it in the time that we have left tonight, but a conversation with your 100-year-old self, that kind of meditation.
Right.
So what would that version of you be proud of that you accomplished? Because you want to make sure there's no regrets, and you want to make sure that you are achieving everything that you have an opportunity in your one short precious life. You talked about health and self-care, protecting what's most important and valuable to you. I do a big piece on peak performance so that you can achieve what you want to achieve, with the focus, of course, being on relaxation. My nephew is an Olympic, and they talk about the rest and recovery phase first. Then they talk about strength, endurance, flexibility, and all the other stuff. Of course, relationshiping is my thing. My clients have asked me to do the deep dive on that one. But it's the relationship with your inner voice. It's the relationship with yourself, your relationship with money. It's your relationship with your previous partner, because that will always be part of you. Your
Mhm.
relationship with, and I think Sean's going to start laughing because one afternoon I'm like, I'm just going to put 100 reasons that we are 100 different types of relationships that we should address. He's like, I think they're all just going to come up naturally. You don't have to ask for them. I'm like, I know, but it's like your relationship with your clients, your relationship with your career, your relationship with revenue and resources. And then it's also the relationship with your intimate partners and how does that change, and your community and your family and your relationship with happiness and fun and your confidence. So it all plays into it. So I went through that just so that I could touch on some that you may not have considered, just so that,
Yeah, all of those are really interesting.
yeah, good.
I like the notion of the relationship of resources. I'm
Mhm.
just thinking about that, money and I have never had that chemistry stage in our lives. I think I've had it for money, but I don't know that money has ever had that chemistry back.
So then, so that's one perspective on it. Another is having resources doesn't have to be money, but it can be the empowerment to do something. It doesn't have to be just the dollar sign or whatever current. The other thing is currency. What's the definition of currency? This one's a big one when I talk about like parenting, or negotiating a relationship with someone. Uh, it's what is their currency? What are they trying to achieve? And when you have a clear
Mm.
understanding of what this other person's goal is, then you can kind of work backwards and go, well, here's your goal. This is your currency. Your currency is to get candy. Your currency is to, going back to the beginning of the conversation, is to procreate or just have the experience in the process. Is hunt. Is it really more than that? What's the currency?
I had a teacher that blew my mind when he described that money is actually debt. That when you look at the dollar bill, it says the Federal Reserve note. It says they owe you $1 worth of value. And then he said, what's $1 worth of value? And it took me about 4 months to recover from that.
Did it take you in little circles in your mind?
It did, but it really taught me something important, because just like Michelle is talking about, what I discovered was it's a very personal question. What is $1 worth of value to you?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I personally have a Checkers just up the street, and between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., I can get a Champ Burger for $1. And I can't tell you how valuable that dollar is to me, because for me, that's my treat. If I'm treating myself to something, I like hamburgers. Yeah, I'd rather have that than a chocolate bar. I love hamburgers. So, for me, it's that. But I bet you it's not that for you guys.
I would gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger at Checkers between 12 and 2. What's the time frame?
10 and 2.
10. And what's really interesting about that example is that the hamburger has a different value outside of those hours.
Yes, it does.
So learning someone's currency will help you understand how to help them get what they want so that you can make a fair exchange, which is what economics is really all about. Oh, wow. Now,
but it's true in social. It's true in, like, when you're talking about all these different relationships, it's true in all those relationships, because those different things, those different people, those different statuses, they're interested in that $1 worth of value is something completely different to them.
I think we need an economist on this.
Well, so I'll jump in a couple things before I gotta leave the call. On the money piece, money's energy. The biggest secret to building wealth is pay yourself first. Yeah, and they said that a minimum 10% first, but you know, that's the financial planner brain in me. That's one of the companies I own. Crystal, the other piece that I would add to what Michelle was saying is that one of the greatest things you can do to re-empower yourself for your future is create a space to dream. Now, everything that Michelle was talking about was about getting clarity moving forward, and your life coach, I'm sure, is working with this. But one of the things that I like to do with people is give them a safe space to start to re-engage the dream process as opposed to the survival process. So one of the exercises I would have you do is just get out 3 or 4 sheets of paper and finish this sentence as many times as you can. Wouldn't it be awesome if blank? And just let your brain go.
Nice.
And now it does many things. One, it re-engages the dream process and it's a flow state. Then what we do with that is we take that exercise and see where the intersections are or the things that show up multiple times. Because the superfluous stuff will show up once, but it's not real. The things that show up with patterns become the important things that give us guidance to our core values, to the place where our energy and our focus should go, to the place that our soul and our heart is speaking more than our logical mind. And it can give you traction on where to start to build your life towards from an authentic, free-flowing dream state that's not forced and not survival based.
That's awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
And then there was something I also wanted to talk about here, which I thank you for segueing, in my opinion, directly into it, which is we often forget about neuroplasticity. Your brain changes. It reinforces itself. It reinforces the way you think. It even reinforces what you think. You'll hit the same thoughts in a row. And right now you are rewriting yourself literally. And what you're going to find is when you do that process, like he's talking about, you're going to find right now a lot of misses. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be like, wouldn't it be awesome if pets could be made of ice cream, right? It's superfluous, right? It doesn't mean anything necessarily. But as you go through it, you're going to hit some really core things to you. And like you said, you're going to start to see them bubble to the surface. And the more you do this exercise and the more you think about this over time, the more your brain will rewrite itself to the point where it's starting to point you in the direction that you really want to go. And that's why you want to be open to the discovery of yourself at this point, not just pigeonholing yourself and saying like, okay, I want to go here. What I really want is a sports car, but to say to yourself, I am willing to be open and find out what I want.
Beautiful.
While I drive a Toyota.
And
sure.
not
Yeah.
Well, wanting a sports car is always fun too. But I'm gonna say thank you because I got to jump off. But I appreciate
thank you very
Good
much.
to see you again, Sean.
Thank you.
Good to see you too, Alan. Thank you, Crystal.
For picking up the pen to write your life your way, because you are the one who's writing the next chapter in your life. I'm Michelle Hoffman. Thank you for joining He Said, She Said in relationshiping in every aspect of your life. Sean Coe and I, Michelle Hoffman, are master coaches, and we have a 90-day program that will improve every relationship in your life. So you can certainly reach out to us if you want to get involved in that. I'm going to stop recording.